Chosen one, you did not arrive here by chance, and this moment was not formed by coincidence. Heaven has aligned your steps with precision, drawing you into this word because the season has shifted and the timing has been appointed. What you are sensing is not emotion, and it is not imagination. It is the awareness that something long prepared has reached its hour, and you are standing at the edge of a divine turning that cannot be delayed. Chosen one, there has been a weighing, a watching, and a confirming that unfolded quietly while you were living ordinary days. What looked like pressure was permission. What felt like delay was development. Scripture speaks of seasons and appointed times, and this is one of those moments when the hidden becomes revealed and the faithful are distinguished. You are not being summoned forward because you were flawless, but because you remained when others withdrew. The door before you is opening because the test behind you has already been answered. Anointed one, this is a kairos moment, a sacred intersection where heaven responds to endurance and releases what has been held in reserve. The shift you feel is not coming soon, it is happening now. As it is written, there is a time to plant and a time to harvest, and you are crossing that line today with heaven bearing witness. Stay present, because what follows will explain why this hour could not come earlier, and why it could not come to anyone else. And chosen one, remember this as we move forward. God's reminders do not always arrive through explanations or signs that shout, but through something quiet and steady that the soul can return to when strength feels thin. It is here for you, resting gently, whenever you need to come back and remember. Chosen one. This did not begin as a single moment, and it did not unfold all at once. What you lived through was layered, quiet, and precise. Heaven did not test you with spectacle, it tested you inside ordinary days, familiar conversations, and private decisions no one applauded. You were examined in places that did not look spiritual at all, and that is why you did not recognize the weight of what was happening while it was happening. Anointed one, the testing you passed was not one trial but a sequence. It unfolded across multiple fronts of your life without announcing itself. It hid inside fatigue, disappointment, restraint, silence, waiting, and self-control. You were being observed not for what you said publicly, but for what you chose privately. Not for what you claimed to believe, but for how you behaved when believing was uncomfortable. And you passed more than you realize. There is something you must understand before anything else unfolds. Not everyone is entrusted with this kind of testing. Not everyone is weighed at this level. Some lives move lightly because they are not meant to carry much. Others are pressed deeply because they are being prepared to hold weight. You were selected because there is capacity in you that had to be verified before it could be trusted with more. Anointed one, opposition does not form around empty vessels. Resistance does not organize itself against insignificant assignments. Pressure always gathers around potential. The intensity of what came against you was not random frustration, it was recognition. Something in the unseen identified what you carry long before you fully understood it yourself. That is why the struggle arrived early. That is why it came through unexpected angles. That is why it targeted your confidence, your relationships, and your sense of worth. You were not attacked because you were weak. You were challenged because you mattered. You were pressed because there was something in you worth stopping, and yet here you are. You did not disappear. You did not collapse. You did not abandon your values or lose your faith entirely. Even when belief felt thin, you did not release it. That alone tells heaven everything it needed to know. There is a pattern woven throughout scripture and history that reveals this truth clearly. Those entrusted with influence are always refined before they are revealed. Joseph was not thrown into confusion without reason. His descent preceded authority. David was not hidden in wilderness seasons by accident. His isolation preceded leadership. Job was not reduced to nothing without purpose. His stripping preceded restoration. In every case, the pressure matched the promise. Chosen one. Your story belongs in that lineage. The sleepless nights were not wasted. The unanswered prayers were not ignored. The moments you almost spoke but chose restraint were recorded. The days you wanted to quit but kept showing up were counted. As it is written in the letter of Peter, faith tested by fire proves more valuable than gold, and that proving is what prepares honor and glory at the proper time. That was not poetry, that was process. You were not being punished, you were being measured. You were not being delayed, you were being reinforced. Foundations that must carry height are tested more severely than structures meant to stay low. What you are being prepared to hold requires stability, not enthusiasm. That stability is forged through quiet endurance, not loud declarations. Now that this has been established, we can begin to speak plainly. The testing phase is complete. The measuring has ended. What remains is revelation. In the next moments, you will begin to recognize specific patterns from the last season and understand why they unfolded the way they did. What felt like loss will reframe itself as separation. What felt like silence will reveal itself as containment. What felt like delay will show itself as alignment. Anointed one, there is a reason you survived without becoming bitter. There is a reason you did not retaliate when you could have. There is a reason you kept integrity when no one was watching. Heaven does not overlook those moments. Those moments determine access. They decide who can be trusted with acceleration, influence and provision without being corrupted by it. Something is beginning to move because you proved steady under weight. This is where the transfer begins, not as spectacle, but as positioning. Doors will open because you no longer force them. Resources will align because you no longer chase them. Favor will rest because your spirit learned how to remain balanced under pressure. Before we go further, let this settle. The last season did not define you. It qualified you. What comes next will not overwhelm you because you have already been strengthened for it. In the next part, the first of these hidden tests will be named clearly, and when you recognize it, you will understand why certain people had to exit and why that pain was necessary for what is now approaching. Chosen one. This did not begin as a single moment, and it did not unfold all at once. What you lived through was layered, quiet, and precise. Heaven did not test you with spectacle, it tested you inside ordinary days, familiar conversations, and private decisions no one applauded. You were examined in places that did not look spiritual at all, and that is why you did not recognize the weight of what was happening while it was happening. Anointed one, the testing you passed was not one trial but a sequence. It unfolded across multiple fronts of your life without announcing itself. It hid inside fatigue, disappointment, restraint, silence, waiting, and self-control. You were being observed not for what you said publicly, but for what you chose privately. Not for what you claimed to believe, but for how you behaved when believing was uncomfortable. And you passed more than you realize. There is something you must understand before anything else unfolds. Not everyone is entrusted with this kind of testing. Not everyone is weighed at this level. Some lives move lightly because they are not meant to carry much. Others are pressed deeply because they are being prepared to hold weight. You were selected because there is capacity in you that had to be verified before it could be trusted with more. Anointed one, opposition does not form around empty vessels. Resistance does not organize itself against insignificant assignments. Pressure always gathers around potential. The intensity of what came against you was not random frustration, it was recognition. Something in the unseen identified what you carry long before you fully understood it yourself. That is why the struggle arrived early. That is why it came through unexpected angles. That is why it targeted your confidence, your relationships, and your sense of worth. You were not attacked because you were weak. You were challenged because you mattered. You were pressed because there was something in you worth stopping. And yet here you are. You did not disappear. You did not collapse. You did not abandon your values or lose your faith entirely. Even when belief felt thin, you did not release it. That alone tells heaven everything it needed to know. There is a pattern woven throughout scripture and history that reveals this truth clearly. Those entrusted with influence are always refined before they are revealed. Joseph was not thrown into confusion without reason. His descent preceded authority. David was not hidden in wilderness seasons by accident. His isolation preceded leadership. Job was not reduced to nothing without purpose. His stripping preceded restoration. In every case, the pressure matched the promise. Chosen one, your story belongs in that lineage. The sleepless nights were not wasted. The unanswered prayers were not ignored. The moments you almost spoke but chose restraint were recorded. The days you wanted to quit but kept showing up were counted. As it is written in the letter of Peter, faith tested by fire proves more valuable than gold, and that proving is what prepares honor and glory at the proper time. That was not poetry, that was process. You were not being punished, you were being measured. You were not being delayed, you were being reinforced. Foundations that must carry height are tested more severely than structures meant to stay low. What you are being prepared to hold requires stability, not enthusiasm. That stability is forged through quiet endurance, not loud declarations. Now that this has been established, we can begin to speak plainly. The testing phase is complete. The measuring has ended. What remains is revelation. In the next moments, you will begin to recognize specific patterns from the last season and understand why they unfolded the way they did. What felt like loss will reframe itself as separation. What felt like silence will reveal itself as containment. What felt like delay will show itself as alignment. Anointed one, there is a reason you survived without becoming bitter. There is a reason you did not retaliate when you could have. There is a reason you kept integrity when no one was watching. Heaven does not overlook those moments. Those moments determine access. They decide who can be trusted with acceleration, influence and provision without being corrupted by it. Something is beginning to move because you proved steady under weight. This is where the transfer begins, not as spectacle, but as positioning. Doors will open because you no longer force them. Resources will align because you no longer chase them. Favor will rest because your spirit learned how to remain balanced under pressure. Before we go further, let this settle. The last season did not define you. It qualified you. What comes next will not overwhelm you because you have already been strengthened for it. In the next part, the first of these hidden tests will be named clearly, and when you recognize it, you will understand why certain people had to exit and why that pain was necessary for what is now approaching. Chosen one. The delay test is one of the hardest trials heaven ever allows, not because it is dramatic, but because it is quiet. It stretches the soul in ways betrayal and silence never could. Betrayal wounds the heart. Silence tests the spirit. But delay presses directly against your hope. It asks a question you rarely speak out loud. Why is everyone else moving while I remain still? Chosen one, you have lived this test more than once. There were seasons when everyone around you seemed to receive what you had prayed for, Someone got the job while your application sat untouched. Someone found love while your heart remained waiting. Someone stepped into opportunities that looked like they were meant for you. And though you smiled on the outside, something inside you whispered, "When is it my turn?" The delay test is not about denying you the promise. It is about enlarging the vessel that will hold the promise. The delay makes you deeper, steadier, and stronger than the timeline you imagined. And heaven was watching not how long you waited, but who you became while waiting. Anointed one, I know this place well. There was a chapter in my life when I watched people celebrate milestones I had prayed for years earlier. I attended their ceremonies. I congratulated their victories. I showed up for their moments, even while my own heart felt bruised. And I remember driving home from one of those events, feeling both proud of them and painfully aware of my own waiting. But something sacred happened in that car. I realized God was stretching my capacity, not withholding my blessing. He was enlarging the foundation beneath me so what He planned wouldn't collapse when the weight arrived. Chosen one, that is exactly what heaven has been doing with you. You were not overlooked. You were not forgotten. You were being developed. Delay is heaven's way of saying, you deserve more than what you're asking for. But you must grow into the version of yourself that can carry it. Many people fail this test because they become bitter. They resent the success of others. They collapse inward. But you, without even realizing it, passed the delay test with honor. You celebrated others even when your own heart was aching. You refused to let jealousy attach itself to your spirit. You refused to let waiting turn you small. Heaven recorded every one of those choices, and now, because you passed betrayal, silence, and delay, you stepped into a realm that few survive long enough to understand. The isolation test. Anointed one, isolation is not loneliness. Loneliness is the absence of people. Isolation is the presence of purpose. When heaven isolates you, it is not removing comfort, it is removing distraction. It is cutting away voices that dilute your calling. It is separating you from environments that can no longer hold who you are becoming. Think back. There were moments when you looked around and realized you had outgrown conversations, outgrown habits, outgrown circles you once depended on. You could be surrounded by people yet feel unseen. You could speak from your heart yet feel unheard. This was not rejection, this was redirection. Chosen one, when heaven calls someone higher, the crowd thins. Every great life encountered isolation before elevation. Moses in the wilderness, David in the caves, Elijah by the brook, John on the island. Isolation is heaven's classroom for destiny. I remember a season of deep inner separation in my own life. I would sit at gatherings and feel like my spirit was miles away. Conversations felt shallow, rooms felt unfamiliar. I kept asking myself, why can't I feel connected to these people anymore? And the truth was simple. God was shifting me into a new identity, and the people attached to the old version of me could not go where I was headed. Chosen one, that is what has been happening to you. God was not removing people because they were bad. He was removing them because they were misaligned. Their presence would have diluted your next level. Their voices would have interfered with your clarity. You were being purified, not punished. And the miracle? You did not lose yourself in isolation. You did not lower your standards to fit in. You did not shrink your calling to keep peace. You allowed heaven to separate you without resisting. That is why you passed the isolation test. But now, anointed one, we enter a test that few recognize until it is too late, the abundance test. This test arrives not in scarcity but in blessing. It examines not your desperation but your stewardship. Most people think poverty tests character, and it does. but abundance tests character more. Chosen one, you have tasted moments of unexpected blessing, a financial breakthrough, a door that opened suddenly, a small victory that lifted your spirit. And heaven watched what you did with it. Did you become arrogant, or did you remain grateful? Did you cling to it tightly, or did you stay generous? Did you forget the one who blessed you, or did you remember? Heaven saw your heart, and your heart remained steady. You handled small blessings with humility, which is why larger ones are now being prepared. But before heaven releases abundance fully, there is another test you have already lived through, the identity attack test. And this test is more subtle than all the others combined. In part 4, we will walk into the revelation of that identity battle, the whispers, the doubt, the inner warfare, and why surviving that season has positioned you for a supernatural promotion unlike anything you have experienced before. Chosen one. There comes a point in every spiritual journey where the battle is no longer loud, external, or dramatic. It becomes internal, quiet, and relentless. It is the place where heaven has already spoken, the promise has already been set in motion, yet your reality still looks unchanged. This is where endurance is forged. This is where warriors are made. This is where the chosen learn to carry what they have not yet seen. Anointed one, the identity attack you endured was not a sudden storm. It was a slow erosion, a quiet wearing down of your confidence. The enemy did not shout, he whispered. He spoke in the tone of your own fatigue. He tried to take your purpose by taking your sense of self. He did not need to wound your body. He targeted your inner knowing. And every time you felt unqualified, unseen, unheard, or unprepared, that attack was at work. What makes this test so dangerous is that it arrives disguised as your own thoughts. The voice sounds familiar. The doubt feels reasonable. The exhaustion feels justified. But chosen one, heaven saw you continue anyway. Heaven saw you pick up the fragments of courage that were left and carry them through days that felt heavier than they should. Heaven watched you refuse to surrender your name, even when the weight tried to make you forget it. I know what this feels like. There are seasons when the mirror does not reflect the strength you thought you had, when your own voice sounds small in your ears, when you question whether your life is truly capable of becoming what God whispered over you. I have lived through the kind of nights where faith felt like lifting a stone with bare hands, and belief felt like holding my breath underwater. But every time I reached the point of almost letting go, something quiet inside reminded me I was not standing on a promise, I was standing inside one. You have lived that same quiet miracle more than once. Anointed one, you may not realize it, but surviving the identity attack means you have stepped into spiritual maturity. It means you have learned to separate truth from feeling, calling from insecurity, direction from distraction. You no longer break at the places where you once bent. You no longer retreat at the voices that once intimidated you. The enemy's whisper has lost its authority because you finally remembered who authored your story. And now, chosen one, we stand at the threshold of the seventh test, the almost test. This test does not roar, it does not declare itself, it does not arrive with warning. It shows up when your strength is lowest, when your hope is thin, when your spirit is tired in ways you do not have language for. It does not ask you to fall, it simply suggests that you stop trying. The almost test happens in places no one sees. The quiet drive home where your hands shake on the wheel. The late night where your chest feels heavy and your thoughts scatter. The morning where you stare at the same ceiling and wonder why the breakthrough hasn't come. It is not dramatic. It is not cinematic. It is the slow unraveling that most people never notice, and yet heaven watches more closely in this test than in any other. Anointed One, you have lived through that moment. Recently. Quietly. A moment where something in you cracked. Not shattered, but cracked. And for a breath, you wondered if holding on was still worth it. Anyone else would have slipped. Anyone else would have turned back. Anyone else would have surrendered the promise just to stop the pressure. But something inside you refused to collapse. Something ancient. Something placed in you before your first breath. Something heaven recognizes as endurance. Chosen One, you did not pass the almost test because you felt strong. You passed it because you kept moving while feeling nothing at all. You prayed even when the prayer felt hollow. You kept going even when your motivation was gone. You held on to a God you could not feel in a moment when you felt barely held yourself. That is the kind of victory the spiritual realm honors. Not loud triumph, quiet persistence. And there is something else, deeper still. In every journey of faith, there are moments when revelation is not what sustains you. Instead, it is a small reminder, a word returned to, a phrase remembered, a truth you've whispered to yourself on days when strength ran thin. Many believers open scripture in those moments not to study, but to find a single line that steadies the breath. You have done this without realizing it was a form of spiritual resilience. And in that same spirit, a quiet reminder has been placed for you in the description and the pinned comment. Anointed One, heaven measures these moments differently than humans do. People celebrate mountaintops. Heaven honors survival. People admire loud faith. Heaven crowns the ones who keep walking in silence. And you, without applause, without recognition, without visible reward, have walked through trials that would have undone people with twice your support and half your calling. This is why the next season will not look like the last. Not because the warfare has ended, but because you have changed. Not because the road is easier, but because you are stronger. Chosen One, you survived the test that was designed to stop you, and something in the spiritual realm has shifted because of it. You may not see the fullness yet, but the atmosphere around your life has already begun to rearrange, preparing to release what your endurance has made possible. And now, Anointed One, heaven moves toward the unveiling, because what comes after the almost test is the beginning of a supernatural transfer that has already been set in motion for you. Chosen One. There is a point in every divine journey where the atmosphere around your life begins to shift before anything in the natural world does. It is subtle at first, almost imperceptible, like the faint change in the air before a storm breaks, or the quiet stillness before dawn. You may not have language for it, but your spirit has already sensed it. Something is drawing near, something appointed, something earned through endurance, surrender, and a kind of faith that does not collapse under silence. Anointed One, heaven does not release reward lightly. It does not pour out blessing without first preparing the vessel that will carry it. The tests you endured were not punishments, they were calibrations. They were the slow and steady shaping of someone who would one day hold influence, authority, clarity, or provision without losing humility. The 7 tests did not define your worth. They proved it. And now, because you passed where most would have folded, the spiritual realm has begun shifting resources, opportunities, relationships, and timing toward your life. You may have already felt the first evidence, a sense of inner settling where there used to be restlessness, a peace that does not match your circumstances, a sudden awareness that you are not standing on the edge of loss, you are standing on the edge of release. That is how heaven signals transition, not always with signs in the sky, but with alignment inside the soul. Chosen One, the reward now approaching you is not random, it is not scattered, it is not vague, it is targeted, specific, and tied directly to the pain you survived. Heaven never wastes a wound. What hurt you in a past season becomes the doorway to what will heal you in the next. What emptied you becomes the space God fills. What broke you becomes the platform you stand on. The spiritual transfer that is coming is not just compensation, it is transformation. And yet, Anointed One, before the reward fully manifests, heaven often gives hints, soft indicators that a divine rearranging is underway. Some of those hints have already brushed past your life. A conversation that resonated differently, a memory resurfacing that demanded release, a dream that felt too vivid to ignore, a number that kept repeating until it pulled your attention. These were not coincidences, they were confirmations, quiet signatures from heaven that the reward season has begun, even if the manifestation has not yet reached your hands. I have lived through transitions like this, seasons where everything still looked the same on the outside, yet something internal had shifted so profoundly that I knew life could not continue as it had been. I remember sitting alone with my thoughts, recognizing that I was no longer afraid of what once frightened me, no longer bound to what once limited me. Nothing external had changed, but I had. And within weeks, the external world began rearranging to match the new internal reality. Doors opened, conversations shifted, provision appeared. The alignment started with the soul before it reached the surface. You are standing in that exact place now. Chosen One, heaven is not preparing just one reward. It is preparing 7, each one tied to a test you endured. Where betrayal stripped, divine connection will restore. Where silence pressed, clarity will rise. Where delay stretched, acceleration will redeem. Where isolation hollowed, divine community will surround. Where abundance revealed character, multiplication will honor it. Where identity was shaken, confidence will be fortified. Where almost broke you, supernatural endurance will sustain you. This is not poetic language. This is spiritual law. Anointed One, before heaven releases these rewards fully, it removes blockages, internal patterns that might choke the blessing once it arrives. Sometimes the blockage is self-doubt. Sometimes it is old bitterness disguised as memory. Sometimes it is the premature sharing of promises not yet ready to be exposed. And though you may not realize it, heaven has been guiding you to release these blockages one by one. The healing you felt recently, the forgiveness that rose unexpectedly, the boundaries you set without apology, these were not random emotional choices. They were part of the preparation. Chosen One, you are stepping into a season where what flows to you will not slip through your fingers. What arrives will remain. What opens will stay open. What begins will have longevity. This is the difference between a blessing given too early and a blessing granted at the appointed time. The appointed time is now approaching your life, and heaven is preparing you to carry it without losing yourself. There is a reason the spiritual realm honors endurance more than excitement. Excitement fades, endurance builds. Excitement reacts, endurance transforms. Heaven did not anoint you because you felt strong. Heaven anointed you because you stayed when strength was gone. You kept moving through days that felt heavy, through nights that felt empty, through seasons that felt unfinished. That persistence is what has shifted your spiritual rank. You are not where you were. You are not who you were. And heaven knows it, even if the world has not seen it yet. Chosen One, what comes next is not small. It is not symbolic. It is not partial. It is a divine transfer, a movement of something heaven withheld until you were ready. You have reached readiness, and now the spiritual realm is aligning to meet you. In part 6, we will step into the revelation of this transfer and why the atmosphere around your life is signaling that the release has already begun. Chosen one. There is a moment in every divine storyline when the shift stops being internal and begins pressing its way into the natural world. You are standing inside that moment now. What has been stirring in the unseen is no longer content to remain hidden. The alignment you have felt in your spirit is beginning to translate into movement around you. The air feels different because the season has changed, even before the evidence has reached your hands. Anointed one, heaven does not release transfer all at once. It releases it in waves, first in awareness, then in perception, then in positioning, and finally in manifestation. You have already passed through the first two stages without realizing it: the sudden clarity, the unexpected peace, the quiet knowing that you are no longer waiting for something, but waiting with something. These are the pre-arrival signals of divine transfer. The next stage is positioning, and heaven has already begun moving pieces around your life. Certain conversations have recently carried unusual weight. Certain opportunities seemed small, but felt strangely important. Certain people drifted away without conflict, while others appeared unexpectedly with timing too precise to be coincidence. These moments are not random. They are indicators that heaven is aligning the path before releasing the promise. Chosen one, spiritual transfer does not begin with what you receive. It begins with what heaven removes. Some connections were cut not because you failed them, but because they could not accompany the version of you that is emerging. Some plans collapsed, not because you lacked effort, but because they would have limited the blessing waiting to unfold. Some delays were actually divine protection, shielding you from a premature yes. Heaven is meticulous about timing, because timing determines capacity. I remember a season in my own life when everything seemed stalled. Doors that should have opened stayed shut. Messages that should have been returned remained unanswered. Plans that seemed aligned suddenly fell apart. At first I assumed I was being blocked. I later discovered I was being positioned. What felt like loss was actually a making of space. What felt like silence was actually a clearing of the path. Within weeks, the new alignment revealed itself, and every previous closed door made sense. You are standing in that same sacred preparation. Anointed one, divine transfer is not just about receiving blessing, it is about receiving responsibility. Heaven does not place authority, influence, clarity, or provision into the hands of someone who cannot sustain it. The 7 tests you survived forged the spiritual resilience needed to carry what is now moving toward you. Transfer requires weight-bearing faith, and you have developed that faith in ways you do not yet fully see. And now, something crucial is unfolding. Heaven is not simply sending blessing toward you, it is redirecting blessing to you. There is a difference. When heaven sends blessing, it moves through channels open to many. When heaven redirects blessing, it reroutes what others forfeited through doubt, delay, or disobedience, and places it upon the one who endured. You, chosen one, have lived through the refining required to qualify for what others surrendered. This is why, in this season, you may notice sudden acceleration, progress without explanation, favor without striving, encounters without planning. These are the early signs of transfer. Things that once took months will take days. Things that once took effort will unfold with grace. The blessing is not arriving because you chased it. It is arriving because you became the kind of person who can carry it. Look closely at your recent days. The inner heaviness has begun to lift. The confusion that once clouded your decisions has thinned. The fear that once followed you has loosened its grip. These are symptoms of spiritual elevation. Heaven always shifts the internal weather before shifting external reality. Chosen one, Divine transfer is multi-dimensional. It touches identity, relationships, opportunities, provision, and clarity. And it never arrives without confirmation. Heaven confirms the beginning of a new season through small signs that only the spirit-sensitive will notice. A sentence that stays with you. A dream that feels like memory. A number that repeats until your attention locks onto it. A sudden wave of peace in the middle of a day that offered no reason for calm. These signs are not superstition, they are spiritual communication. Some of these signs have already found you. You did not imagine them, you did not exaggerate them. They were heaven's whisper saying, "Prepare yourself, the transfer has begun." Anointed one, there is one more layer. Divine transfer is not simply about receiving what was promised. It is about stepping into who you became through the process. Heaven honors identity before reward. The person you are today is not the person who entered the testing season. You have depth now, discernment now, weight now. Heaven releases transfer only when identity has matured enough to hold it. You have reached that maturity, and because of that, the next movement will not be subtle. In Part 7, Chosen One, we will enter the revelation of what the transfer actually contains, what heaven has prepared, what is already in motion, and what is about to break open over your life in ways that will confirm everything your spirit has been sensing. Chosen One. There comes a point in the journey where heaven no longer speaks in hints, impressions, or gentle indicators. The season shifts, the veil thins, and what once felt distant begins pressing against your reality with unmistakable clarity. You are in that place now. What has been forming in the unseen is no longer content to remain hidden. The transfer is not approaching, it is unfolding. Anointed one, divine transfer is never a single blessing. It is a sequence, a progression, a layered release that touches every place where you obeyed, endured, surrendered, or suffered. Heaven does not return to you what you lost. It returns to you what loss prepared you to carry. That is why the reward for each test has a distinct shape. Heaven is not scattering favor randomly across your life. It is placing it precisely where the wounds were deepest, where the silence was longest, where the delay was hardest, and where the almost test came closest to breaking you. You may not see the fullness yet, but the structure of the transfer has already begun taking form around you. Chosen one, the first layer is restoration. Not restoration of what was taken, but of what was meant for you. Heaven is returning your sense of alignment, your clarity, your spiritual footing. You will notice your decisions sharpening, your hesitations dissolving, your old fears losing relevance. This is the restoration of direction. The second layer is repositioning. People who once overlooked you will feel compelled to pay attention. Opportunities that once slipped through your fingers will return with new timing. Rooms you were once excluded from will begin opening on their own. This is not coincidence. This is divine redirection, reshaping the map of your life. The third layer is recompense. This is where heaven compensates the years of loss, the stolen time, the drained energy, the unseen labor of your faithfulness. Recompense is not symbolic, it is tangible. You will feel it in relationships, in timing, in breakthroughs that unfold with such precision you will know they were heaven-authored. Chosen one. The fourth layer is release. The moment the spiritual realm pushes what was held back into the natural world. This is where sudden movement happens. Phone calls you didn't expect. Solutions you stopped trying to force. Provision that arrives from directions you never imagined. This is the stamp of heaven saying, now is the appointed time. The fifth layer is recognition. Not recognition from people, recognition from purpose. Your gifts, your calling, your strengths, long overlooked or underused, will begin pulling you into alignment without you having to chase anything. Purpose recognizes the one who endured preparation. Purpose knows your name, and it has begun calling you. Anointed one. The sixth layer is reinforcement. When heaven promotes, it also protects. Old battles that once drained you will no longer reach you. Attacks that once intimidated you will fall flat. You will notice your inner world becoming harder to shake, harder to discourage, harder to destabilize. This is spiritual reinforcement, a sign that heaven has strengthened the foundation beneath you. But the seventh layer is the one heaven releases only to those who have survived the deepest seasons, the mantle of divine authority. Chosen one, this is not symbolic, this is not poetic, this is spiritual reality. The authority you carry now is different from the authority you carried even months ago. You have weight in the unseen. Your prayers hit differently. Your words carry force. Your presence shifts atmospheres because heaven recognizes you as someone who has passed the tests others ran from. Anointed one, divine authority is the seal of transfer. It confirms that heaven is not merely blessing you, heaven is entrusting you, and everything that has fought you knows it. This is why people may treat you differently soon without knowing why. Why conversations will shift. Why favor will appear without effort. Why breakthroughs will come with minimal resistance. You have crossed into a new spiritual category, and your life is about to reflect that change. Chosen one, the spiritual realm is already responding to who you have become. Your endurance has rewritten your atmosphere. Your obedience has altered your trajectory. Your survival has activated a release that cannot be undone. In Part 8, we will enter the closing revelation, not the end of the journey, but the unveiling of what this new mantle means for your next steps, your identity, your influence, and the supernatural unfolding that is now moving toward your life with unstoppable force. Chosen one. There is a moment in every anointed life when heaven does not simply confirm your identity, it amplifies it. You have reached that moment. What you are stepping into now is not merely the conclusion of a testing season, it is the unveiling of a mantle, a calling, a spiritual weight that had been waiting for the version of you who exists today. The you who has been refined, the you who has been strengthened, the you who has been made clear. Anointed one, this final revelation is not an ending, it is an initiation. The tests behind you did not close a chapter, they opened a corridor. They did not build a wall, they carved a path. You are stepping into a future that was always written for you, but could only begin after endurance did its work. Heaven could not release this mantle early, not because you were unworthy, but because the fullness would have crushed an earlier version of your spirit. Now, you can carry what once would have carried you. Chosen one, here is the truth few understand. Spiritual authority is not announced, it is recognized. It is not granted by men, it is affirmed by heaven, and it is never given lightly. Heaven does not release authority where there is instability. It does not release influence where there is insecurity. It does not release elevation where there is inconsistency. The life forged through 7 tests is the only life strong enough to hold this weight. That is why the shift you feel is not emotional, it is structural. Your spirit has widened, your discernment has sharpened, your capacity has increased. You can feel things others do not feel now. You can sense misalignment faster. You can identify truth more clearly. You can walk into a room and know instantly what belongs to you and what does not. This is the gift of someone who has survived what was meant to break them. Heaven rewards endurance with clarity.
Anointed one, do not be surprised when the atmosphere begins responding to you. Purpose recognizes authority. Breakthrough recognizes maturity. Even spiritual opposition recognizes when someone's rank has increased. This is why resistance may suddenly fall silent, why certain struggles no longer cling to you, why old insecurity now feels foreign. You have risen, and everything around you is adjusting to that rise. Chosen one, you are now entering a season where your life will not move by effort, but by alignment. Doors will open because your presence carries the permission. Conversations will shift because your voice carries weight. Opportunities will find you because your spirit is no longer dimmed by doubt. Even your prayers will feel different, not because God changed, but because you did. Heaven responds to who you have become. What comes next is movement. Not frantic movement, not pressured movement, but ordained movement, doors opening at the exact moment your foot reaches them. You will not have to chase. You will not have to force. You will not have to plead for clarity. The path has already begun shaping itself beneath your steps. Anointed one, hear this deeply. Your authority is not loud. Your authority is not aggressive. Your authority is not unstable. Your authority is settled. It is the authority of someone who has walked through fire without losing their shape. It is the authority of someone who has held on to God in the silence. It is the authority of someone who has waited through delay without letting bitterness take root. It is the authority of someone who has stood alone in isolation without losing their identity. It is the authority of someone who almost quit, but didn't. This is why heaven is releasing transfer. This is why doors are opening. This is why clarity is rising. This is why your name is being whispered in rooms you haven't entered yet. Chosen one, you are stepping into a supernatural unfolding that does not require striving, only obedience. The season ahead will not resemble the season behind you. The old battles will not return because you no longer live at the altitude where they can reach you. The old doubts will not sabotage you because your identity is no longer open for negotiation. The old versions of you have completed their assignment. They carried you to this threshold, and now the mantle carries you forward. Anointed one, you are ready. Not because you feel ready, not because everything makes sense, but because heaven has said so. And when heaven declares readiness, the earth aligns accordingly. You are stepping into a life that will make the battles make sense. You are stepping into a chapter that will reveal why the waiting had to be long. You are stepping into a blessing that fits you now in a way it never could before. The release has begun. The alignment is active. The mantle is resting on you. Chosen one, walk forward. This is your appointed season. This is your divine unfolding. This is your supernatural transfer rising. Chosen one, you have reached the end of this message, but you have not reached the end of what heaven is doing in your life. The shift that began in the unseen is already moving toward manifestation. You are standing inside your Kairos moment, your divinely appointed time, and nothing formed against you can delay what God has already released. Walk forward now with the quiet confidence of one who has been tested, refined, and entrusted with supernatural transfer. The same God who carried you through the fire now crowns you with authority, clarity, and favor for the season ahead. Anointed one, if this word resonated in your spirit, you may share it or leave your declaration in the comments as a mark of agreement with what heaven has begun in you. And if you feel led to remain connected, you are welcome to subscribe and journey with us as heaven continues to unfold what is yours. A practical spiritual reminder has been quietly prepared for you in the description and the pinned comment. After this,
Go to the description and the pinned comment for what comes next. Chosen one, may the Lord bless you, keep you, surround you, and establish you. Your new season has begun. Walk in it.